Trump touts a deal with the European Union. But what about a deal with Canada? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
U.S. President Donald Trump is celebrating a win. Trump is still in Scotland as his administration touts a new deal with the European Union. Trump also met with the Prime Minister of the UK today, Keir Starmer. The trade framework revealed yesterday with the EU sets a 15% tariff on most goods. The announcement came after Trump and the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, met at Trump's golf course in Scotland. Trump praised the deal with the EU, saying America's relationship with the bloc has been too one-sided.
A very good relationship over the years, but it's been a very one-sided transaction, very unfair to the United States. And I think both sides want to see fairness, but it's been a very, very one-sided deal, and it shouldn't be. And so we're here with her very brilliant staff, and hopefully we'll resolve a few issues.
Trump would go on to say that the EU needs to be more open to American products, emphasizing cars.
You know, we're open to European products, and we have been for forever. I don't think we have, we just about don't have any, I don't think we have any product that we say you can't sell. I guess you could get a little bit cute with chips, but that's, you know, a little bit different category too. No, Europe is very closed. We don't sell cars into Europe. We don't sell essentially agriculture of any great degree. They want to have their farmers do it, and they want to have their car companies do it. I'm not saying anything that nobody knows. We have a rough situation. If we want to sell cars in Europe, we're not allowed to. As you know, they sell millions and millions of cars, Mercedes, BMW, so many different, Volkswagen, so many different cars, and so many millions of cars. I would imagine number one, I didn't look at that, but I would imagine number one by far, more so than even Japan. Japan sells a lot of cars too.
So what does all of this mean for Canada? Because a deadline for a deal between Canada and the United States is set for August 1st. That's this coming Friday. And there's still no sign of a breakthrough. Just last Friday, Trump suggested that deadline may come and go, and Canada will simply have to pay tariffs.
August 1st is going to come, and we will have most of our deals finished, if not all. We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation. We're working very diligently with Europe, the EU, which covers a lot of territory, a lot of countries, and that's the big one right now. We have the confines of a deal with China. We haven't really. We don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it. When those letters go out, they're a page and a half. That means they have a deal, it's done, they pay that tariff, and that is a contract, essentially. And they can come into the country, they're going to pay a tariff. I'm going to keep it minimal, I'm going to keep it, I'm not looking to hurt countries. I could do that too, but I'm not looking to do that. But when that letter goes out, that's a deal.
One of President Trump's top people on the trade file is the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who told Fox News Sunday there won't be a grace period.
Okay, so no extensions, no more grace periods. August 1st, the tariffs are set. They'll go into place. Customs will start collecting the money, and off we go. Obviously, after August 1st, people can still talk to President Trump. I mean, he's always willing to listen. And between now and then, I think the president's going to talk to a lot of people. Whether they can make him happy is another question, but the president's definitely willing to negotiate and talk to the big economies for sure.
Speaking this morning on Prince Edward Island, Prime Minister Mark Carney wouldn't say if the two sides were close to a deal.
Industry, businesses, Canadians, they are anxious and they're concerned. They don't deserve the uncertainty that's been thrust upon them. They don't like it. They like resolution, but they'd also like they want the right kind of resolution. They want a deal that makes sense for Canada, that makes sense for Canadian business, for Canadian workers, and the negotiations are at a intense phase. It's a complex negotiation.
That echoes similar comments from Prime Minister Carney last week. when he was meeting with the provincial premiers. And he said senior officials with his government are continuing to negotiate with their American counterparts.
We are looking for the best deal for Canada. We are only going to accept the best deal for Canada. That is very much informed by our discussion. What we collectively can most control is building a stronger economy, moving from reliance to resilience and division to unity. That will require two things. First, support for affected industries, lumber, steel, aluminum, automobiles. Crucially, what we're looking to do is support those industries to build bridges, to build a stronger Canadian economy, to build forward. So if it's lumber, it's building more houses in Canada. It's developing new markets around the world as we work with the Americans.
Canada is currently subject to U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, and automobiles. In response, Canada has imposed retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. We'll talk about interest rates. Bank of Canada week, a rate decision coming from our central bank on Wednesday. That's coming up on Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
The direction of interest rates will be a big news story this week. The Bank of Canada will make its latest announcement on interest rates and the economy. That's coming up on Wednesday. Let's get a forecast from Sal Guatieri. Back with us, senior economist and director at BMO Capital Markets. Hi again. Great to hear from you.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah. Hi, Sal. Great to hear from you. So what do you think is going to happen on Wednesday?
Well, not much. I think the Bank of Canada will just hold tight for the third straight meeting. There's just not enough on the plate to resume the easing cycle. I think the Bank of Canada is still worried about some stubbornness we're seeing in the core measures of inflation. There's a couple that are still running closer to 3% than the 2% target, partly because of food, shelter cost inflation hasn't fully unwound. Rent costs, for example, mortgage payment costs, but even though that will. So there's been a concern about inflation. We saw a very surprisingly strong jobs report for June that actually pushed the unemployment rate down a bit. So on that basis, and I think the Bank of Canada just wants to wait until we get a little more clarity on trade policies, which we could very well by Friday, by August 1st, if we see an agreement, this trade and security deal between the two governments. So I think the Bank of Canada will just hold tight on Wednesday.
Okay. So we're now into the second half of the year. What are you expecting from the Bank of Canada on interest rates for the rest of the year? Do you think it holds steady for the rest of the year then?
No, we do expect the bank to resume rate cuts probably in September, and then moving again perhaps at the end of the year, December, and maybe one more time by early spring of next year. Unfortunately, we do expect the economy to show some effects of the trade war. We already saw that with a couple monthly declines in exports to the U.S., because of the very hefty duties on the steel and aluminum industries, and to a little lesser extent on the auto industry, and just the uncertainty of delaying business investment in this country. So unfortunately, we do expect the economy to turn down very mildly for a couple of quarters, and that would push the unemployment rate up maybe a half percentage point by the end of the year. And I think that would be enough to get the Bank of Canada to worry less about inflation and more about the economy and job markets, and resume rate cuts perhaps in September.
So what is the macro view of the economy? Just how is the Canadian economy performing these days? What's your assessment?
Well, it's doing quite well prior to the trade war. We up to the first quarter of this year, the economy was generally growing at a faster than 2% annualized clip, which is a little bit stronger than normal. So, and it was generally running faster on a yearly basis than most other countries, including the U.S. and the Euro Union, that whole region. So it was actually doing quite well on the back of the previous rate cuts from the Bank of Canada. And we know that consumers are still holding up not bad. The latest retail sales reports, at least the flash estimate for June, was stronger than expected. So we think consumers are holding up, and that's largely because unless you work in the auto, steel, aluminum industry, you're somewhat shielded from this trade war, at least so far, because tariffs really are not applying to the vast majority of goods that are still sold into the U.S. So people are still spending, but unfortunately, we do expect the economy to buckle a little bit in response to fewer exports to the U.S. and delayed business investment until we get some clarity on the trade front. So we are still calling for a mild downturn in the economy for a couple of quarters.
Mild downturn. Does that mean recession?
Unfortunately, yeah, a very technical, shallow downturn. It won't feel like a recession for the vast majority of households and workers in the country. It will largely be concentrated in those three affected industries, and mostly in Ontario and Quebec, the two provinces most exposed to those three industries. The rest of the country, I think, will continue to perform relatively well. But unfortunately, that's the situation. Now, who knows? If we do get a trade deal that's relatively okay and a lot of this uncertainty goes away, we may just see a one-quarter dip in the economy because of a dip in exports in the previous quarter, and we could start to pull out of it. Most of the June indicators, actually, whether it's for manufacturing shipments, wholesale trade, and as I mentioned, retail sales, and of course employment, have topped expectations. We might actually see companies and even households starting to respond to some thawing in trade relations, on optimism that we will get a trade deal and we could just kind of move on from this trade war. So hopefully that situation will play out and the economy will actually exceed our expectations in the second half of the year.
Okay. So you don't expect any big news one way or the other from the Bank of Canada on Wednesday. The Federal Reserve in the United States will also make its interest rate announcement for that country also on Wednesday. And the safe money seems to be on the Fed standing pat. Is that your call as well?
Yes, almost certainly the Fed will remain on hold as it has been for all of this year. You could probably argue even more convincingly that the Fed should stay on hold compared to the Bank of Canada because inflation is still running a bit above the Fed's target. And the economy is showing some fair amount of resiliency, whether you look at consumer spending or to some extent even business investment. The only weak spot really seems to be the housing market, but it's such a small share or slice of the U.S. economy, it almost doesn't matter in the whole grand scheme of things. So the Fed will stay on hold again. But much like the Bank of Canada, we think once it gets some clarity on future trade policies, and as some of the data suggests, we're not seeing much of an impact on inflation in the U.S., we do expect the Fed to resume rate cuts in September, and then again another move in December, and perhaps a few cuts through next year as well.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Great to hear from you today, Sal. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Yep. Sal Guatieri is senior economist and director at BMO Capital Markets. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's great to be back with you after 2 weeks of summer holidaying, some of it in Atlantic Canada. And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, now you know with Rob Snow. Great new mobile app for you. It will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. And now you know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. What can you say about those Toronto Blue Jays? They did not win last night against the Detroit Tigers, losing 10-4. But nevertheless, I mean, they're coming off two back-to-back series here against two very good baseball teams. They took 2 out of 3 out of the New York Yankees, and they won 2 of 3 in a series against the Detroit Tigers. So, really a nice run here for the Toronto Blue Jays. In fact, against the Tigers, I think it was 3 of 4. Let me correct myself, 3 of 4. So the Blue Jays right back at it again today, still on the road, and it's kind of a first place, last place matchup. Toronto Blue Jays are still in first place in the American League East, and they will play the last place team in the American League East, the Baltimore Orioles. So pitch time on Sportsnet tonight, 6:35 Eastern. Okay, 6:35 Eastern, and then it's a doubleheader day tomorrow. Toronto, Baltimore. The first game goes at 12:35 Eastern, so just after noon. And then again tomorrow evening, 6:35. And then again, the Blue Jays and Orioles right back at it on Wednesday. The Jays aren't back home in Toronto until Friday, when they'll start a series against the Kansas City Royals. But heck of a run for the Toronto Blue Jays, still in first place in the American League East. And they are now 5.5 games ahead of the Yankees, 6.5 games ahead of the Boston Red Sox, and still the most wins in Major League Baseball, 63 wins for the Toronto Blue Jays. The big political announcement today was Prime Minister Mark Carney, and the backdrop for it was the Confederation Bridge that goes from New Brunswick to Borden-Carleton, Prince Edward Island, what is sometimes called the fixed link. And there's a hefty toll. I've paid it a few times to cross that bridge. It's more than $50 to cross the Confederation Bridge. You pay it when you leave Prince Edward Island. It's like the escape fee to escape from Prince Edward Island. So this was an election promise. The Conservatives during the election campaign were saying they would get rid of the tolls altogether on that bridge, on the Confederation Bridge. The Liberals aren't quite going that far, but it is a hefty discount. So the fee will go from $50.25 for the average vehicle down to $20. And there's ferry service between Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island. And they're also going to cut the fees, the fares in half for passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles. And they're also going to do the same for ferry service run by Marine Atlantic, which goes between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. That was a big affordability-related announcement today from Prime Minister Mark Carney in PEI. Our Newsday panel is just ahead on Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
And it's time for our Newsday panel. Matthew Dube is Vice President at Proof Strategies. How are you today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good to hear from you. You're a former NDP MP, is that right?
That's correct.
A two-termer, if I'm not mistaken. Welcome to our Newsday panel. Great to hear from you. Yeah, great to have you on our show today. Along with a good friend of mine, Kris Sims, director of the Alberta Taxpayers Federation. Kris and I used to work together, former journalist, staffer on Parliament Hill. How are you?
Great, Snowman. Thanks so much for having us back on.
Very good to hear from you. And she's the only one who gets to call me that, Snowman.
Duly noted.
All right. Yeah. Don't get any ideas, Matthew. Look, I want to talk about what's going on in the by-election battle in Battle River Crowfoot. This will be one of the few political stories of the summer worth paying attention to, really. You have the longest ballot initiative, and it has signed up 209 people to run as candidates in this by-election. 209 people. Now, some people think this is a scam. This is actually a perversion of the democratic process. Others say it's a legitimate form of protest about electoral reform. Mr. Dube, what do you think, Matthew?
I think it's pretty, scam is one word. I actually think it's pretty disgraceful, not to mince words too much here. They've done this before, obviously, in some of the other by-elections over the last year and a half, 2 years, as you know, and as your listeners know. And I think the big issue here is that I struggle to understand how you're promoting a cause that ostensibly seeks to have a more accessible or democratic form of democracy, and yet you're doing that by undermining the very thing you're saying you're trying to defend. I mean, the only people that this really impacts, this isn't getting a message through to decision makers. What it's doing is it's causing accessibility issues. It's an undue burden on Elections Canada workers, both those at the national level and obviously those who run the campaign locally. And, I think people need to realize that there are accessibility needs that a lot of voters have. I know this firsthand from having, campaigned in 3 different federal elections. And so you think of people with different forms of disabilities where voting can already be a challenge. And then you're dealing with this long ballot. And the long ballot is not about giving people a chance to run. It's about just kind of proving a point, supposedly. But I really think it's more just trolling, to be honest with you. And I think that hopefully now, I mean, Mr. Poilievre, it's impacting him directly now, and so 2 times in a row, in fact, and so he clearly has a strong opinion of it, and hopefully that means there can be a bit of a consensus to find some kind of fix for this when Parliament returns in the fall.
Just before I jump to Kris, do you think he's being unfairly targeted?
I don't think it's him specifically. I know 2 ridings that were Liberal-held seats, even though they didn't win those by-elections. You think of St. Paul's in Toronto and La Salle-et-Mort-Verdun in Montreal were also targeted. So I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's unique to him. I mean, he's been on the unfortunate end of it. But yeah, no matter who it is, whatever party, whoever is running and riding, I don't think it's acceptable that it should happen. It really undermines the process as a whole.
Okay. Kris Sims, Alberta Taxpayers Federation, what do you think about this longest ballot initiative, 209 names on it?
Well, the Taxpayers Federation will do things like stunts, right? Where we'll dress up in a chicken suit and protest in front of somebody's office or hand out, golden pig statues, things like that. So I get the point of doing something that is kind of flamboyant, that sticks out. But this is the actual function of Elections Canada. This is the actual function of the election, as has been pointed out. And so it looks so odd. And I've been a scrutineer, and I've helped people when they're actually at the voting station. And his point is exactly right. There are some, including seniors, who have a lot of trouble seeing the whole ballot. And now when they open it up and it looks like, those old gag things where you open up a can and the big paper worm jumps out, it just unfolds. Yeah. It truly would hinder some people's ability, and they'd get kind of spooked by it or not want to be able to vote. And so I think there must be a better way for these folks to be able to prove their point that they want electoral reform without getting right in there, in your face, by yourself at the most private democratic moment, which is voting, in the voting booth. So I would advise them, comms-wise, I would shift gears on this real fast.
Yeah. They don't seem to. I'm sure they've heard that before. They don't seem to. I mean, last time in Carleton, there were 90 names on the ballot. 92, I think, was the final number. And Elections Canada had to bring in specialized staff. They had to train everyone who was going to be working in that riding on election night. The training, just to train people, people who were working on election night, took more than an hour. They had a training session that included how to fold the ballot. Each ballot box can only hold 50 ballots. I mean, I know people in the riding of Carleton. I've heard this secondhand, I should say. It's hearsay. But I know people, because this caused such great lineups in the riding of Carleton on election day, that people didn't vote. They were like, if it takes 2 hours, I'm not going to vote. So there are it can be affecting other people's ability to vote. Here's just one. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, Matthew, but maybe you can speak to this, because as a candidate in an election, you've had an official agent. I mean, is it really right? You may have dozens of candidates. They all have the same official agent. That doesn't seem right to me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, some people have proposed that as the solution, and it's clearly the way that they've managed to navigate this, right, is by having one person's name. Because for folks who don't know, right, and I appreciate your point of not getting too far into the weeds, but legally there's kind of only 2 people that formally exist when you're in a campaign, right? The candidate and the official agent. And so I think given the responsibilities that the official agent has, I think it's an easy way to maybe tinker with that a little bit. I don't really know of many scenarios. I could be wrong. Again, this is just anecdotal, but to my knowledge, I don't know many scenarios where in the same riding you would have the same official agent for multiple candidates. I mean, they're not always partisan. Sometimes it's a friend of the candidate. Some people like to have someone who's got a bit of an accounting background, right, because they're responsible for financial filings and things of that nature. So, but at the end of the day, it's pretty rare in the same riding. Sometimes a party might have someone on staff who acts as an official agent for multiple candidates of the same party, but obviously that would be among different ridings. So I've heard people float that idea. I think it's an interesting one. I think the one that gives me pause a little bit is when people talk about, you have to make a deposit to run as a candidate. And so people have suggested making a change there. I would be more cautious on that front because you also don't want to limit legitimate participation for candidates.
Sure.
But I think hopefully there's a bit of a consensus now. I think several parties have agreed that it's a grotesque deformation of what our democracy should be. And so I hope that folks can work on a nonpartisan solution to avoid this happening again.
Okay, we'll be right back. Kris, I'll get you to weigh in on one more angle of that when we come back to our Newsday panel. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
With our Newsday panelists today, Matthew Dube, Vice President at Proof Strategies, former NDP MP, Kris Sims, Director of the Alberta Taxpayers Federation. And Kris, you usually hang your hat in Lethbridge, so I must ask you, even with 209 people as protest candidates in this by-election, let alone running against the usual suspects in the Liberals and Democrats, whatever, is Poilievre in any trouble there, do you think? Could this hurt his chances? No, you don't see any. No.
No,
okay.
Not. And to be clear, if you go back and count the elections point that night from Carleton, I forget how many it was. I think it was around 700 or 800 of those.
Oh, Poilievre lost by 4,000, though, right? He lost by 4,000. Yeah,
that's what I'm pointing out is he lost by a pretty wide margin of 4,000, whereas those independent candidates, if you add them all up, I think it was maybe around 700 or something like that.
Okay.
It was not the deciding factor. All that said, we are not populated by bureaucrats in Battle River, Crowfoot, Alberta. So no, I don't see there being a bump in the road here.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the NDP leadership race. We're learning more about it as each week goes by. They'll announce a winner in March. Matthew, who do you think is going to be in the running?
That's a good question. I think right now I'm hearing, and some of it's intuiting and some of it's actually hearing. So I think there's a few things going on right now. I think one is there's a lot of people that are trying to let the dust settle on what the process is going to be. Obviously, that's been announced now, and then, are going to wait to officially kick off in the fall when people start paying attention again, as the old sort of cliche goes. But, there's folks that are publicly out there that you've seen and others have seen as well. Like you think of Heather McPherson, who's seeming to restate her intentions without actually stating them in different forms over the last few months. But beyond that, I think there's a lot of folks that are on the fence, and I think a big reason for that is what this next leadership mandate is going to look like, right? I think, and I say this as a New Democrat, and the reality is, and not to take people for idiots, the fact is that there's going to be a lot of work, and this isn't going to be someone who is going to be day one running to be prime minister in the job, right? There's going to be a lot of rebuilding, a lot of regional focus in different parts of the country that's going to be required. So for that reason, I think a lot of people are weighing it pretty carefully. Politics is pretty grueling on people's families and things like that, as we all know, and it's all the more so when you're a leader, and especially a leader with more limited resources, both on the parliamentary side, without having official party status, and then on the party side as well, as they look to rebuild. So a lot of folks.
Let me ask you just very quickly,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Stephanie Plante is the mayor of Montreal. Her name keeps coming up. Could you see her making the jump to federal politics?
For Valerie Plante, I don't like.
Valerie Plante, sorry.
Question. Yeah. No, that's okay. That's a good question. I mean, I think she has. She definitely, a lot of her supporters in Montreal would tend to be, the kinds of folks who've come out and support the party, the NDP, not only with their votes, but with their time, volunteering, and their dollars by donating. But I also think, I'd be curious to see where that goes, because I do think one of the challenges the party has is how to, represent a diversity of regions, right? Madame Plante was very focused on very urban issues, very Montreal, and it's far from unanimous, as you can appreciate, outside of Montreal, even within Quebec, in terms of some of her approach. So she's obviously a very capable politician, led one of the biggest cities in the country for a number of years, multiple mandates. But I'm not necessarily convinced that that's the kind of profile of someone that's needed right now at a time where we need to be reaching across a broad diversity of audiences in the country to really properly rebuild the party and set it up for future success.
Kris, I mean, neither Kris nor I are New Democrats, but we follow federal politics. I feel like this party just needs a fighter, like a real fighter, like a Pat Martin style MP, working class, dirt under the fingernails, hard hat, labor driven lunch bucket New Democrats. That's what I feel the party needs. I don't know about you, Kris. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I had a life before the Taxpayers Federation, and I grew up in British Columbia in resource towns. And that kind of NDP, very different from Jagmeet Singh's NDP. And so I think that they are going to try to go back to that well of the origin of Ginger Goodwin. So he was, for example, a labor union fighter in Cumberland in British Columbia, out west here, and became kind of a folk hero. I mean, the highway's named after him. In more modern times, I would think maybe a Boilermaker like Bill Blakey, right? Someone like that.
Okay.
I think they'd have a pretty good fight against the so-called central banker, right? They'd really be able to cut their own piece of the pie out.
Yeah, it'd be quite a contrast. Yeah,
big time.
Yeah, quick comment on that, Matthew.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Pat Martin. Kris mentioned Bill Blakey. Look where those folks come from, right? Manitoba. You look at the Wab Canoe government there. You might not agree with everything they're doing, but the fact of the matter is that that's a government that's willing to compromise to get stuff done, right? And I think that's going to be a big question for New Democrats going forward. Is you're the party of working class people, but you also want to win to get some of this stuff done. And politics at times has to be the art of the compromise. And so I think that's the needle that needs to be threaded. And I think it's been done well in the past by New Democrats and in the prairies and BC to some extent. And I think that's a little bit of that secret sauce would be useful federally for sure.
Okay, be right back. We'll talk. We have got to stop here, Kris. We'll be right back. You can jump in when we return here. This is the Newsday panel on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Well, we try our best. Matthew Dube is Vice President of Proof Strategies. Kris Sims is the Director of the Alberta Taxpayers Federation. Former journalist, staffer on Parliament Hill. Kris, you wanted to weigh in on the NDP. Just a quick comment there.
Very quickly, Premier Wab Canoe speaks French very well. And I believe and he's trilingual. He also speaks First Nations language. I believe it's Ojibwe. If it is not, I apologize. But dude is trilingual and got lots of communication skills. I'm just saying.
And
I don't know if he'd want to.
Yeah, but it has the Premier's office already. Like, do you leave the Premier's office to go try and rebuild the federal NDP?
I know.
Right?
That's a long haul. Yeah, to Matthew's point, they don't have party status, so that means they don't even have like a research budget. They're not on committees. Like, that would be tough sledding. But just saying.
It's very tough. Yeah. No, he's the dream candidate, I think, for a lot of people, Wab Canoe. Would you agree with that, Matthew? He's the dream candidate for a lot of New Democrats?
Yeah, the man, he's impressive. I mean, I saw him speak at Ed Broadbent's funeral and had a lot of those same feelings. But the fact is, as was pointed out, right, it's a bit of a downgrade on the job, and I think that's the challenge right now, because the next go around, if the rebuild goes as a New Democrat would hope, that becomes more interesting opportunity. So a lot of folks like that who might have been more enticed but are now probably in wait-and-see mode, right?
Yeah. Very quickly, Kris, you're with the Taxpayers Federation, lower taxes, smaller government. What do you think about this report that the Carney government could cut 60,000 public service jobs?
Oh, that would be a start, because the Trudeau government added about 99,000 since it started in 2015. And the cost of that government has gone up more than 70%, 70% in the past decade. Like, they have not just kept pace with population and inflation. It's super big.
Okay. Quick comment on that, Matthew Dube. 60,000 public service jobs. Mr. Carney didn't campaign on that, but it's in the news now. I mean, that would be more than the Chrétien Martin downsizing in the mid-90s. Of course, the total size of the public service is much larger now. What do you think about that figure, though?
Well, listen, I think the devil's in the details, because, as you said, this wasn't something that was campaigned on, and I can appreciate that the public service for a bunch of reasons, some legitimate, some less so, as an easy punching bag politically. But at the end of the day, how does this impact services that are being delivered to Canadians? I mean, maybe polling, public opinion doesn't favor the public servants themselves, but the services, that's another story. So I think that there's a lot that needs to be hashed out on this, and there's surprisingly little officially on the record from the government. So again, I think the devil will be in the details here for sure.
Okay. Great to hear from both of you today. Thanks for being a first-timer, Matthew. I hope we can entice you back sometime and get your perspective.
It was a great time.
Again.
Hope I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. In Ottawa today, where it is a muggy 28 degrees in your nation's capital today, and everybody is seeking the AC. That's Matthew Dube, Vice President at Proof Strategies. And Kris Sims is Director of the Alberta Taxpayers Federation. Calls Lethbridge home. Is it raining in Lethbridge, Kris?
It is partly sunny and 16 degrees.
Partly sunny and 16. Okay, they will take that in Calgary.
You bet.
12 degrees and rain, pouring rain in Calgary today. But they're the weather losers today, unfortunately, our friends in Calgary. Thanks, Kris. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye. That's our Newsday panel. Talkback. Yeah, it's been a while. Let's do Talkback right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day and today, since it's our first show in a couple of weeks. My first day back in a couple of weeks after some summer holidays. We have a few topics that we want to run by you, kind of a Monday mixed bag, get your opinion. We're kind of easing ourselves back into the news cycle. One of them, really love to hear from you on this, get your thoughts on this. One of them is this MAGA-aligned Christian singer, Sean Feucht. Sean Feucht. You've heard about this story. Share your opinions here. 1-833-668-2577. So this guy's touring Canada, or trying to, but his concerts keep getting canceled by various authorities at various levels of government. In fact, in Montreal, a church that hosted a free concert by this performer, Sean Feucht, inside the church is now facing a fine by local authorities who say the event didn't have the right permit. So the church could be fined as much as $2,500. Now, I'll be honest with you, I never heard of this guy until this controversy started making the news in the last few days. He was supposed to perform in Halifax. Parks Canada revoked the event's permit, citing safety concerns. He was supposed to perform in Charlottetown. That was canceled. Supposed to perform in Moncton. Canceled. Quebec City. Canceled. Gatineau. Canceled. Vaughan, Ontario. Canceled. Eventually, this tour is supposed to travel to Winnipeg and Saskatoon, Kelowna, Abbotsford, and in Edmonton in the third week of August in Edmonton. And in Edmonton, he's supposed to perform on the grounds of the Alberta legislature. And the local authorities there are reporting to be helping him secure all the needed permits. So look, what do you think about this? 1-833-668-2577. What do you think about government authorities canceling concerts, revoking permits, issuing fines to this performer? The authorities in Montreal, for example, said he shouldn't be allowed to perform because he is described as a far-right Christian nationalist who is opposed to abortion and gay rights and trans rights. But there are others who are saying, look, canceling concerts for those reasons, that could be seen as a violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I'm talking about the serious, big, fundamental freedoms that are in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of peaceful assembly. And the case is already being made. Canceling these concerts because authorities don't like the person's religious views or what the person has said about various issues, or that other Canadians would want to come and hear whatever his message happens to be, you're just trampling all over this person's charter rights, and that shouldn't be allowed to happen. Mr. Foyt himself has called this the biggest scandal in Canada, and he claims that he has talked about his Canadian experiences with top White House officials, and he claims to be a victim of religious persecution. What do you think about this saga? The MAGA Christian singer comes to Canada and his events get canceled. Were authorities in the right when they canceled those concerts? Or were they in the wrong when they canceled those concerts? Share your thoughts, please. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Phone lines open right now. On the political front, I mean, the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, trying to win a seat in the House of Commons in a by-election. You remember he lost on election night in the riding that he previously represented, the riding of Carleton in the Ottawa area. I'm hearing things here. He managed to find a Conservative MP to step aside, Damien Carrick.
Sure, Amelia.
In the riding of Battle River Crowfoot for the Conservatives. One with more than 80% of the vote. He has stepped down. Poilievre will run in that by-election, the by-election official date, August 18th. But once again, they're at it again. Organizers with this thing called the Longest Ballot Initiative.
Thank you.
Have signed up hundreds of candidates to run in this by-election. 209 people. 209 people. Now, the group says it's a form of political protest, that it raises awareness for electoral reform, and that's what this is all about. Some people say it's nonsense. It's more about being anti-Poilievre. It has nothing to do with electoral reform. It hasn't targeted any other party leaders, only Poilievre. Poilievre has gone so far as to call it a scam. And some people think it's a perversion of the democratic process. What do you think about it? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And one more topic. Just going to throw it out there. Maybe have some thoughts on this. Children and how children play during the summer and what children should be doing this summer. So I was reading today, there's a new parenting trend, and it's called a couple of things. It's called the feral child summer, or the 90s summer. And I guess the idea behind it is it's this growing movement to allow children to be as independent as possible, as creative as possible. And if that means children are out unsupervised at all hours, from sunrise to sunset, that's just great. It'd be good for them. Just like it was in the good old days. The 1990s. I guess for me, it'd be more like the 70s or the 80s. Unstructured playtime. Let children ride their bikes. Don't worry about where they're going. Let children play outside, get dirty, let them drink from the garden hose, jump through a sprinkler, play in the street, chase the ice cream truck. The case is being made. Parents are structuring activities too much and too often for children with things like summer day camps, 2 weeks at summer camp in the name of childhood development. And that everything for children in summer is just too structured these days. And contributing to that is the overuse of technology and too much screen time. And instead, what parents should be doing is letting their children be, the word is feral. Feral. Let them explore their own limits with their own playtime. What do you think about when you hear this? Positive development? Should more parents take this approach with their children? How does it work with your children? Are you raising feral children? How realistic is it to parent children like this these days? Just tell your children, the sun is up, go do whatever you want, don't come home until the sun comes down. Is that even realistic in this day and age? Or is it reckless, maybe even dangerous to parent a child like that? Love to know your opinion on that one. I guess I was raised as a feral child. Those were the summers of my youth. But I wonder how realistic it is in this day and age. 1-833-668-2577. Feel free to offer an opinion on any of those topics. It's been a while since we've been together and had a chance to kick some things around. That's what we want to do for the next couple of hours. 1-833-668-2577. If you're a first-time caller, mention that. We'll make your call a priority. On Talkback, on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So a Monday mixed bag of topics today. We're talking about the canceling of the concerts of the MAGA supporting Christian performer, Sean Foyt. The authorities have been canceling his concerts. They've been citing safety concerns. They don't like some of his views on things like abortion, gay rights, trans rights. Some people think canceling these shows is a violation of the Charter of Rights, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. Want to know, do you agree or disagree with the canceling of these concerts? 1-833-668-2577. Pierre Poilievre and the by-election that will happen in Battle River, Crowfoot, 209 protest candidates will be on the ballot. 209. What do you think about that? Should that be allowed? Or should something like that be against the rules? Share a thought. And there's a new parenting trend. It's called the feral child summer. I only heard of it today. Or some people call it the 90s summer. The idea, allow children during the summer to be as independent as possible, as creative as possible. Don't worry too much about how they spend their summertime. Supporters of this are saying summertime is too scheduled. It's too structured. Children need to be more independent. Let them go out, get dirty, let them wander. Some wonder as well, though, how realistic is this in the year 2025 because of all the dangers that children can face? What do you think? How does it work in your house with your children? 1-833-668-2577. Feral is that's a power word. I don't know. I'd be curious to know what you think. Let's go to Amelia has called in on Talkback today, calling from Calgary. Hello, Amelia.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good. What's on your mind? What's your opinion?
Well, canceling this Christian preacher, singer, or whatever he is, I have no interest in his content, but it all falls in line with government forming the narrative. So I don't believe that our politicians, and I mean the ones in power, have trust us to form independent, coherent, rational thoughts. I'll just state at the outset, I don't agree with anything that this person, this thought, I don't agree with anything he said. But again, any email I get from government employees indicates their pronouns. The streets have been filled for almost 2 years now with pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian rioters, and meanwhile, the government Justice Department seeks 7-year penalty for Tamara Leach. Did I support the truckers? No. Did I support that racket in Ottawa? No. But one side is allowed and the other side is not allowed, which is all reflective of a government that promotes the CBC, constricts the narrative, decides what we're allowed to think. And if one does that for a good 20 years, and we've had 10 of the Trudeau Liberals, and we have extremely left politicians in many major cities. So once they've controlled the narrative for 20 or 25 years, we get a whole generation of people.
And you think the law isn't being enforced on across the board in a fair way? Fair enough.
It's two-tier and
two-tier justice, or if you will. Yeah.
Yes, as is the problem in all the rage in England, and it leads to a discordant society, opposing groups, cancel culture, and worst of all, the lack of an ability to think independently and express oneself independently by labeling anyone who doesn't agree with the accepted doctrine, which will be reflected by the execution of
there's no scheduled date. There's no scheduled date for him to perform in Calgary, but he will perform in Edmonton with apparently the blessing of the Alberta authorities. And you're okay with that?
I don't care. They can do it if they want to.
Don't care. Sure.
No,
okay.
but
Fair enough.
It's the silencing of any opposing voice that bothers me.
Okay, understood. Thank you for your call. I think you've summarized it well. Weigh in on that or some of our other topics today. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talk Back. For the first time in 2 weeks, and we're looking forward to hearing from you today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Back at it for the first time in a couple of weeks. After a week away, great to be back with you on Talk Back. Rick in Dartmouth. Hello, Rick.
Hi, Rob. Great to be back. I don't mean me, I mean you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I can't even remember the guy's name. The Christian singer. I've heard it 100
Sean
times.
Foyt.
I'm like an
Sean
atheist.
Foyt. Yeah.
I'm an atheist. I couldn't care less about the religious connotations, but I sure as hell don't want to see him censored by the people, the cancel culture. And it reminds me of a line from the Buffalo Springfield song in the 60s. There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear, and it's the what I call the reducing of the freedom of speech in Canada. I would say that our Charter of Rights is pretty much almost useless in terms of defending any of the rights that seem to be trampled upon at any given time by any given part of society. The idea in Quebec that they would cancel this guy doing a show in a church, or if they couldn't cancel him, they would fine him, is abhorrent. Canada has gone so far. I mean, not as far as Great Britain. And by the way, kudos to the first caller. She nailed a lot of stuff. I'll tell you that. So anyway, I'm shocked, and that's in air quotes, by this latest, removal of somebody's point of view, which is pretty simply, I guess Christian. If you believe in, a man and a woman and all that stuff, what's wrong with that? So anyway, I'm at a loss for further words.
At opposed to canceling the concerts. Fair enough, Rick. Thank you for your call. To Scott in Southern Ontario. Scott. Hello, Scott.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Scott. Thank you for calling.
Good. Thanks for taking my call, as usual.
You're welcome.
The long ballot, Rob,
yes.
I find it a little bit ironic. Two by-elections in 2024. You know what I'm talking about. Toronto and Montreal. Liberal strongholds. The front page news in the National Post and everywhere was that the Liberals lost the stronghold. There was very little mention about the long ballot. There was 90 people were on those ballots in both of those by-elections, and it wasn't even a line item in the newspaper or on the news about the long ballots. But now that it's Pierre Poilievre and it's Conservatives, well, it's
for the second time.
Now, granted, 200 people is a lot. But it's funny that in 2024, with the Liberal by-elections, which the Liberals lost, it was all about the Liberals losing and nothing about the long ballot. But now it's about the long ballot. So I just thought I'd throw that one out there.
Okay. Whether it's in a Liberal stronghold where the Liberals lose and it's not reported as much as it's being reported now. The question is, do you think it should be allowed?
No.
Should one organization be able to sign up? And even all have the same agent running their campaign and responsible for the campaigns of 209 people. Should that be allowed, or should the rules be changed to prevent something?
No, the rules should be changed. Election Canada should be on top of that. They should be on top of a lot of things like campaigning for 2 years outside of an election and the writ dropping. I mean, Elections Canada has dropped the ball on a bunch of things, but I don't agree with it. I didn't agree with it with the Liberal by-elections. I don't agree with it what's happening out in Alberta with Pierre Poilievre. The American. Just on the weekend, a friend of mine went down to play golf in the States, a 4-day trip with the boys, 30 of them going down to play golf in Michigan. One of them was stopped at the border, was allowed access into the United States because he wouldn't give up the password to his phone. And so he was turned around, and they actually had to drive him to the bus stop in Windsor, and he had to get a bus ride home. And so my point is, we're making a big fuss about this guy being in Canada. And the United States of America, not only do they have like 50 or 60 Canadians in ICE jails right now, they're turning Canadians away.
They're going to cut us off. Thank you. They're going to cut us off.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Any number of topics for you to weigh in on this Monday Talk Back. Great to be back with you today. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio. Call in line 1-833-668-2577. We've been talking about the canceling of concerts. Concerts being put on across Canada, or at least trying to, by this MAGA supporting Christian performer Sean Foyt. Do you agree or disagree with the canceling of these concerts? Where do you stand on this one? Pierre Poilievre and the longest ballot initiative, a sign of 209 people. 209 people, you imagine the size of this ballot. And to run against Poilievre in that by-election in Alberta, in Battle River, Crowfoot. Should those rules be changed to prevent something like that? And what do you do with your children in the summer? Do you just kind of let them roam? Let them be as independent as possible? Not worry too much about how they spend their summertime, if they're out there on their bikes, if they're out there getting dirty, going hiking, whatever. Talking about a new parenting trend today, feral child summer. The supporters say summer playtime, too scheduled, too structured, no more day camps. Don't do that anymore. Let your children be as independent as possible. Let them take risks. But how realistic is this in the year 2025? Love to hear from you on that topic. At 1-833-668-2577. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines available. Kris on the line in Calgary, I believe. Hello, Kris.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Kris. Good to hear from you. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Yeah.
What do you want to weigh in on?
Well, let me comment on a couple of things. First of all, on the Christian singer doing revivals in Canada. Full disclosure, I'm a devout Christian, so if you're talking about his positions on a number of issues, I would probably agree with him, but that's not the point.
No, that's not the point.
It's disgusting that they would cancel this guy because of his beliefs, whether you agree with them or not. And I just question, I heard that, they're doing it because of, quote, safety concerns, okay? Whose safety, who's challenging the safety of people? It sure as heck isn't the Christians that are attending those concerts. It's probably protesters of some sort who are going to block traffic and cause all sorts of other havoc. Well, if we're going to allow people to do that, then we're going to just be canceling everything you can think of. And it's just wrong. Plain wrong.
Okay. Yeah, well, it would seem in the case of the Montreal, I don't know if you saw the news story about Montreal. I mean, the concert started inside the church. The police were there, and someone threw a smoke bomb, 2 smoke bombs at the guy while he was performing on stage. Now, that person who did that was eventually arrested, but it would seem to be somebody like that who's throwing smoke bombs at the performer. That's the safety risk, not the guy who's up there with his hands raised to the heavens, praising God or whatever the case might be. But your point is well taken. It's a slippery slope when you start canceling people for their religious beliefs. Or
Absolutely,
any other belief,
but,
for them.
But it's not just their religious beliefs. And as you said, it was some guy that threw a smoke bomb at him. I'll bet that was a Christian who was praising God and worshiping and whatnot. Oh, terrible of him. No, it was somebody who somehow managed to get in with the smoke bombs and try and create havoc. Are we going to let people who are trying to create havoc rule our country, or are we going to be a nation of laws and have rights to worship as we please?
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Did you want to weigh in on something else here?
Yeah, on the whole thing with the Poilievre election.
Yes,
I don't know what can be done, but it's absolutely ridiculous. Those people that are, the 200 and however many it was that are on that ballot, they're not interested in actually being elected or serving their constituents or anything else. They're just trying to create havoc, and it shouldn't be allowed. And by the way, I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw that a lot of those people that are on that ballot don't live in the constituency. In fact, I saw a report.
Well, Pierre Poilievre doesn't live in the constituency either. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah,
right. He's been an Ottawa guy for 30 years, so yeah.
Right, but I also saw that there was at least one person from the States on the ballot.
Oh, really? I don't know about that. But do you think the rules should be changed to outlaw something like that? Prevent something like that? You do.
I don't know what we do to change it, but it's absolutely ridiculous for people, again, to game the system, to create havoc. We shouldn't be allowing that kind of thing in this country.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your call. Good to hear from you. I believe we have every single phone line available right now. A little quiet on the lines today. First day back and whatnot. We've been away for a while, but we're back now taking your calls on topics. It is Talkback, 1-833-668-2577. I mean, Sean Foyt, this whole thing is really taking off. I mean, what do you think about what's going on here? Yeah, I mean, it's not my cup of tea. You know, he's pro-Trump, devout evangelical Christian, pro-Jesus. He's against some things. A lot of Canadians probably don't like his views on whatever, gay rights, the abortion issue. To the caller's point, I don't want to get into those issues today. It's not really the point. The point is, should someone who is pro-Trump or who is pro-Christ and has deeply held Christian beliefs be allowed to perform concerts in Canada? We're apparently outlawing that now. In city after city, authorities are saying no. They either won't issue a permit, or if one has been issued, permits are being revoked, concerts are being canceled. If they're rescheduled, they seem to be going ahead on private property, for example, in a farmer's field, or in the case of Montreal, in a church. Now, authorities in Montreal are going to penalize the church, give the church a $2,500 fine for going ahead and having this concert. Where do you come down on a topic like that? We'd really like to know. I mean, I've never heard of this guy before this controversy started making the news. Part of me thinks it's probably been good for his career. But I do follow civil liberties issues quite a bit. And I know people in those circles are not happy with what's going on because of the view of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. People in Canada have fundamental freedoms. One of them is the freedom of religion, freedom of expression, fundamental freedoms. And so is the right to gather peacefully and assemble. This would seem to call that into question as well. Do we only have these freedoms for some people, some religions, but not others? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. That or the other issues that are in the mix today. We'd love to hear from you. It's Talkback on a Monday. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It sure is. First one of the week. Let's go to first-time caller from Halifax, David, on the line. Hello, David.
Oh, hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Great. I just wanted to call and get my opinion in on this this Christian singer.
Sure.
I don't know what all of his religious views are, but from the ones I've heard, I don't agree with them, and that's fine. He can hold whatever beliefs that he wants, and I don't think we're infringing upon any of his rights because he can hold his beliefs, and nobody's going to interfere with what he believes in. But don't we have a choice of what people like? Don't the venues have a choice of who they want to put on stage? I mean, where does it say that they have to put certain people on? Sorry, I'm just getting another call here. I'm going to do this.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, just on the venues, I could understand if it was a government-owned venue or a government-managed venue. For example, as I understand it, the place in Halifax where this one was going to go ahead was an historic site, so it would fall under the regulation of government authorities. They revoked the permit, okay? And but if it's in a farmer's field, what about that? If it's in a farmer's field, and the farmer says, "Come and have your revival concert at my place." In the case of Montreal, it was a church. It was a church.
The person who has the venue wants to bring this guy in despite his views. That's his choice, and the people who want to attend, that's their choice. But when it comes to a provincial, federal, municipal property, you can't. I don't think. Where do we draw the line? I mean, these are his religious beliefs.
Well, I think you just have. I think you just have.
What about?
Yeah, I think you just have. Yeah.
But people who have political beliefs. Say we have a neo-Nazi who believes in anti-Holocaust or et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna let this guy come in and perform or do.
Well, there is some speech that's criminal already. There's some speech that's criminal already, and the criminal code can deal with that. Okay.
So
you have hate speech. Okay. If you're opposed to abortion, would that qualify as hate speech?
Well, no, he's just saying these are under his religious beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess there's a fine line to distinguish between what's hate speech. I mean, I can go on stage and tell you that I don't believe in the Holocaust, and I'm a German sympathizer, Nazi sympathizer. That's not hate speech either. That's my political views, right?
Okay.
So should I be allowed to come and perform or do my show?
So let's
say,
So let's say when he goes to Edmonton, it'll be on the grounds of the legislature in Alberta. What would you say to that? That's clearly a government.
So he's right,
spot.
And
that's where the concert will be.
Invited.
That's
to
where the
perform
event
there.
is scheduled. I guess they have a band shell there. That's where the event is scheduled. And not only are they not canceling it, they're helping him fill out all the paperwork. What do you think about that?
And who's responsible for that? The municipality in Edmonton?
Well, that would be probably this. Well, it would probably fall under the office of the Speaker of the House of the Legislature. I would imagine they're usually responsible for the grounds of any legislature of any parliament in Canada.
Yeah, so I say it comes down to who owns the venue. If you want to bring somebody on there and you're responsible for the venue, that's up to you. I guess that's your choice. But but my point is,
but public and private makes a big difference for you. If it's a publicly run facility, then you don't think he should be performing.
I think it's up to the venue, and I just think we're being too hard on these shows being canceled because the venue has the choice to invite or not invite whoever they want, and maybe they made the mistake of inviting this guy first and then canceling, which maybe they shouldn't have done, but they shouldn't be told.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was invited or if the facility was just booked.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then once they found out that about these views, they said no, we don't want. And I think they have every right to say who they want to allow to their venue and who they don't.
Okay. All right. That's your opinion. I'm going to move along, David. I got you, David. I want to get to some other calls here because our time is tight. Do we have time for one more? No? Okay, you're going to play the music already. Running a tight ship today. Be right back. Bernie in Mississauga, Bob in Calgary, Maureen in Lethbridge, Jeremy on the line as well from Halifax. So all stay on the line. I'll get you on the air shortly on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Right back to the phones on a Monday mixed bag of topics today. Bernie is up next in Mississauga. Hello, Bernie.
Yeah, how you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Bernie.
That's
What's your opinion?
It's pretty hypocritical, this singer to come to this country, backed by the evangelists in the States, when they're coming out and calling Netanyahu the rise of the line, and they're calling Trump the seven trumpets, and they're watching the genocides going on in Gaza, and yet they raid up Israel's backside. So I think they're hypocrites, and they should keep him out of the country. He's got no right to speak his hate when he wants to speak against people that are trying to make a living in the country, people that are LBGJ and everything else like that. As long as they're peaceful, leave them alone.
Okay. So you're okay if his concerts are canceled?
Yes, cancel his concerts because there are about 7 or 8 channels on television, and they're calling Netanyahu a line, and they're calling Trump the seventh trumpet. They got to be stopped. They're propaganda. Don't talk about far right wing or anything. When Harper was in power and the Afghan war was going on, they banned Colburn from England coming because he was against the Afghan war. So this guy here is going to preach hate against people that are just trying to make a living. He should be stopped.
Okay. All right. Okay, Bernie, I got you. I'm going to fit in another one here. Bernie has no problem with this guy's concerts being canceled. Likens him to a hate preacher. Bob, up next in Calgary. Hello, Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Bob. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Your opinion, please.
Yeah. On the election issue, the ballot issue.
In Battle River Crowfoot. Yeah.
Yeah, and what they did in the Ottawa area back when the election was in April or whatever.
Yes.
Isn't the interesting, first of all, I don't agree with it, but isn't the irony of the whole situation, they can do it. So obviously the rules need to be changed.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the fact that they can go ahead and do this, indicates they're not doing anything untoward, not doing anything that's against the rules. I guess the question is, what does that say about the rules? Do the rules need to be changed?
Exactly. I mean, the fact that they can do it, the rules need to be changed, whether it's a larger financial penalty or whatever the issue is. But the fact that they can do it is silly. I mean, change the rules. Right. I mean, but one of the things that has been suggested, that a candidate has to have an official agent. If I'm running as a candidate in a by-election or any other election, I need an agent and that agent is responsible for basically doing all the bureaucratic things behind the scenes to make sure my campaign meets all its obligations financially and otherwise. Here, most of these candidates with this longest ballot, they all have the same agent. Now, if I was running against, say, you in a traditional election, you would have your own agent and I would have my own agent. We wouldn't have the same agent. So maybe that's one of the things that you change. If you're going to run, you need your own agent. Your agent can't be representing somebody else in the election. Right. Unfortunately, I don't know all the rules, but as the chap on the news said, who is orchestrating this, said, isn't the irony that we can do it? And he's absolutely right. That's the irony. Well, maybe it is something. Yeah, but as I said, I only heard this secondhand, but I heard it more than once, that because of what happened, say, in the riding of Carleton in the Ottawa area, it was taking hours for people to vote on election day. Right. And some people said, well, I'm not waiting hours to vote. I'm going to turn around. So this is actually costing people their franchise, because it's causing all kinds of problems. Right. With how long it takes to vote. The irony. Yes. The irony is they can do it. Change the rules. Yeah. Great opinion, Bob. Thank you. Thank you for hour number one. A full hour just ahead. So if you don't mind waiting through the news, we'll get right back at you right after the news. Back on the phones on our Monday Mixed Bag Talk Back today on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Mixed bag of topics today. Really 3 in the mix for you to discuss. First of all, we have this controversy, I guess you could call it, about the canceling of concerts performed by a MAGA supporting Christian performer named Sean Foyt. Authorities from various Canadian cities have been canceling these concerts, revoking permits, threatening fines. Authorities saying they don't like some of the views that this person holds, evangelical Christian, so strong views on things like abortion and gay rights. However, civil libertarian people think canceling these shows, clear violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. What do you think about this? Agree, disagree with the canceling of these concerts? Love to your opinion on that. We've also been talking about the news today about this longest ballot initiative targeting Pierre Poilievre and his by-election race in Alberta, Battle River Crowfoot. 209 candidates this time. New record, 209 candidates. But should it be allowed? Should something like that be allowed? Or should something like that be against the rules? And not many takers on this new parenting trend, feral child summer or the 90s summer, allowing children to be independent during the summer. Don't worry about how they spend their summertime. Don't structure their summertime with things like day camps or weeks away at summer camp. Let them get out there, have some fun. Get out of the house at sunrise. Don't let me see you till it gets dark. Kind of like in the old days. They also call it the 90s summer. For me, it would have been the 70s summer or the 80s summer. Maybe we can explore that a little later in the week. But let's get right back to our phone calls. Up next, do we have Maureen on the line in Lethbridge? Maureen?
Yes,
hello, Maureen.
I'm here.
Hi,
Hello?
Maureen. Go ahead. You're on the air, Maureen. Good to hear from you.
Yes. I would like to talk about this fellow who's doing this concert that people are all up in arms about. I'm a Christian, and what I think the authorities are worried about is the hate speech that's going to come out. A lot of people figure it's their religious freedom to call down everybody that doesn't agree with exactly what they agree with. And my feeling is that the only person or the only one capable of judging anyone is God. He knows your heart and knows exactly what you're thinking and what your motives are. And I think the reason that he is being canceled, as I said, was because of the hate speech. And I think for a lot of reasons, he just wants to come out and tell people that, it's okay to tell people that what the Bible says and what things they should and shouldn't be doing, but to attack people because of their lifestyle is totally wrong. That's not a Christian attitude at all.
Okay. And you are a Christian?
Oh, I certainly am. I'm a born-again Christian, yeah.
Born-again Christian, okay, because he seems to be of the evangelical Christian tradition. That would be my take on it, okay?
I think right, but...
Maybe the American version, I don't know if that's much different from the Canadian evangelical Christian movement. Okay.
Because I'm an evangelical Christian, and I belong to the Salvation Army. And, and not all, I don't know if evangelicals here in Canada are like that, but I know that the people at my church are not. And like I say, I had a discussion with a young person who was...
Again, it's been reported that, he has strong views on things like gay rights and abortion. Yeah. Which I'm sure evangelical Christians do, right?
Yeah.
Have strong views on that. Okay, but does that count? But is that hate speech, though? Does that qualify as hate speech?
I think if I were to stand up on a platform somewhere and tell somebody that they were going to the fires of hell because they had an abortion, I think that's hate speech. You're calling someone down for what they've done. You don't know the circumstances or anything else about the person. But as soon as you start attacking their, not their standards, but the person themselves, I think that's totally wrong. Jesus didn't do that. He didn't attack people and tell them they were horrible and terrible.
All right, Maureen, what do you think about the canceling of the concerts? Do you agree with that?
I think myself, if the people who booked it didn't know what this person was all about, then I think they have the right to cancel it. But but for a third party to come along and cancel it, that doesn't seem right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Maureen, for sharing your opinion on that. Gary's a first-time caller. Hi, Gary. You're on the air, Gary. Welcome to Talkback.
Hello.
How
are you doing
what's your
today?
Opinion? Just great, Gary. Thank you. A little hot, but I suppose you could use that in Calgary today.
We're the opposite here. Here it's been this heavy rain. I got first on Pierre comment with the by-election with the longest ballot. In my opinion, what they need to do, I agree with what you had said earlier about everybody having their own agent, And as well, they have to have a certain number of signatures. How many of those signatures are real or forged or whatever, or are they signed by the same person?
The same people
And
over and over
another
again. Right, yeah.
Yeah. And the other point is they could charge a fee, say a substantial fee, to have your name put on the ballot, and if you don't collect at least 1% of the vote, it's not refundable.
Okay, right.
So, like, if you charge, say, $25,000 to have your name on the ballot, and if you don't collect at least 1% of the vote, that then it's not refundable, and it helps pay for the election as well.
Yeah, maybe a little steep for my liking. It has been suggested there should be some sort of monetary motivation here. At $25,000, I don't know, that's a lot of money. Maybe $250, something more modest like that. I could understand. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
But even like, you want to do it enough so that the organization that's putting those names forward, they're either dishing out. Like if you make it $1,000, for instance, they're dishing out a substantial fee. They may be able to support 10 people instead of 200.
All right. Got you, Gary. Thank you. Got to stop here. It is Talkback on a Monday. Rolling right along now at 1-833-668-2577, but lots of time to take your call. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's been a long wait for some of our callers today. I apologize for that, but let's get right to the phones. Jeremy up next in Halifax on Talkback. Hello, Jeremy. Thanks for waiting, Jeremy. You're a trooper
no problem,
today.
Rob. I think the whole cancellation of concerts, as much as I disagree with the the views that might be expressed by the fellow who's putting them on, I think a much more powerful statement would be to allow them to go ahead and let the public who is on the other side of the issues that he's promoting at his concerts to show up and make their voice be heard through public assembly and public protest.
Right. Okay.
Right? I mean, that's the point of the charter, is that sure, it protects speech, and some of that speech we might not like. I mean, full disclosure, I have a brother who's transgender, and do I align myself with what the views of this preacher or pastor, whatever he is, that's putting this on? No, but I think there's a huge amount of variation in the Christian community as to what is a Christian held belief. I work with other people who hold different religious views, and a lot of them I can say with a fair amount of certainty they would not see this man as espousing the same Christian beliefs that they do.
Right.
But again, I think that the best place for that to be debated is in the public forum, and public protest is a powerful vehicle. We've seen that south of the border, right? It's
right. Yeah.
And we've seen it here in Canada. Look at the convoys and the truckers. I mean, again, did I necessarily agree with everything they were doing? No, but do I think that that there's a reason for the charter, and that I think if you cancel stuff like this, you really don't have any way to gauge what the broader public perception of it is, because government has made that decision for you. And I see it.
Okay.
I do. Right. I do see that if it's on a federal piece of property or a municipal. If he is espousing views that discriminate against a identifiable group of the population, I think that the government has a role to play there in stopping that from happening. But again, I think a much more powerful sort of way to get the message across to him and other people who may decide to espouse these views is to have members of the public who hold different views come out and say, no, we don't agree with this and we don't think it's right. And I think there's power in a message that comes from people like that when they organize.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you, Jeremy. Great analysis there. Really appreciate it. Let's go to Iva in Calgary. Iva. Hi, Iva.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi, Iva.
For
You're
taking
welcome.
my call.
My pleasure.
I want to talk about I would like to talk about this Polyev issue.
Sure.
I only have one thing to say. The number of names on the ballot is ridiculous. And why are they so afraid of Polyev that they're doing this?
Well, they say that it's not about being anti-Polyev or anti-conservative. It has nothing to do with Polyev. It has everything to do with raising awareness about the need for electoral reform. That's why they're doing it.
I don't.
You don't buy that, though, do you?
That. No. Not at all.
Okay.
If that was the case, every candidate would have had that happen to him, not just Polyev.
Right. Well, he's the only party leader who's been targeted by this. They have done this in other ridings. They did it in Polyev's last riding. They also did it in one of the by-elections as well in the Montreal area. And 90 people on the ballot there as well.
And it was a PC person on that ballot. So they're picking on strictly PC people as opposed to Liberals or NDP.
Okay. You think the rules should be changed?
Oh, big time.
Big time. Okay.
We need a lot of changes in this country.
Okay.
But
as I say, Elections Canada seems unable to do anything about it. So I guess under the current rules, it's all legit. It's all on the up and up. It doesn't run afoul of any of the rules about elections. But maybe, maybe that needs to change. Maybe that needs to change. If it's not against the rules, then maybe we have to take a look. We have to take a look at the rules. Okay, I have your opinion, Iva. Thank you so much for calling in today. 1-833-668-2577. Let's stop here. And we'll take a few more calls before the news at the bottom of the hour. If you're on the line right now, we will get you on the air shortly. This is Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, the big conversation starters today, Pierre Poilievre running against 209 candidates, a record put forward by the longest ballot initiative in the by-election that will happen in about 3 weeks from now, I guess, in Alberta, Battle River Crowfoot. Thoughts on that? Should that be against the rules, having so many candidates? Some of them don't live in the riding. Pierre Poilievre doesn't live in the riding, I would point out. And the MAGA supporting Christian performer Sean Foyt has been getting his concerts canceled all across Canada. It sounds as though it will go ahead in Edmonton, Alberta, with the help of officials in Alberta. Feel free to weigh in on that one, too. Marie is a first-time caller. Marie. Hello, Marie. Hi, Marie.
Hello?
Hi, Marie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on all three of the topics that you had. The first one,
yeah, sure.
I think if the venue is aware of who the performer is and kind of what they stand for, it should be allowed to go ahead. And people need to remember that there's a difference between having a controversial or polarizing opinion versus being a terrorist or extremist and spouting those beliefs. Those are totally two different things. And, just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you should be able to stop them from speaking. If you don't like it, don't go.
Okay. All right.
Then on the longest ballot in history with Poilievre, I think it's ridiculous. I think it makes a whole mockery of the whole voting system. It kind of basically just says that our whole, petty political games are welcome. I used to be someone who, when I was younger, I didn't really vote. I didn't really take it seriously. And then one day somebody said to me, why not? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't really follow it much or this, or I don't know that much. And they said, people died for the right to have their say, to be able to vote. And then that really changed my opinion. And I always make sure to vote. I think people have forgotten that people fought for this right, and now to just turn it into some petty political game, I think that does a real disservice for all the people who fought for the right for all different groups to vote. And then lastly, on the kids, on the topic about if you let your kids be 90s kids or
the 90s summer. The term they're calling it feral child summer. Let your kids be feral. Which is kind of a strong word, but
I agree.
Okay.
I have three kids. They're 8, 15, and 16, and I'm much more of a 90s parent. I think I'm probably the minority where I don't let them go feral, obviously. We have a general plan every day, what's everybody up to, and then there's check in when you get there, or
right,
or when you get home. But I refuse to get there's this app called Life 360, and it like allows you to track your kids' every move. Like if they're driving, you can see their speed limit. You can see exactly where they go, when they go, when they get there. And so many parents
You're
have
like your
them,
own
and
personal surveillance state there, Marie. My goodness.
Which I refuse to get, because I said, like, kids, if you never give them freedom to freedom to figure out their life, the only way they can figure out life, how to do life, is by doing it. And as parents, that's what we're supposed to teach them. We're supposed to help them figure out how to succeed in life, how to make decisions, all of that. And you can't, your job isn't to make every decision for them and monitor every move. You're supposed to be there to support them when they, encourage them when they're making good decisions, help them if they're making, figure out the bad ones. But if they never make a bad decision, you want them to do that when they're 8, 10, 12, 15, 18, not when they're in their 40s or 30s and they have no idea and no confidence in themselves that they can actually make a decision. And so I am much more get out there and live life and figure it out as we go.
Excellent. Thank you. You're the only one who wanted to opine on that today. I thank you so much for doing that. I was hoping that would be more popular as a topic than it was today, but we can always explore it later. Thank you for your call. Marie, the latest breaking news is coming up next, and then more of your calls on Talkback here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
With a few issues in the mix today, Monday mixed bag, with local authorities canceling the concerts of MAGA supporting Christian performer Sean Voigt, citing safety concerns and not appreciating some of the performer's views on things like abortion and gay rights. Others have suggested it's a violation of the Charter of Rights to people not have freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. What's your opinion on the canceling of these concerts? It's happened in, I think, at least half a dozen cities. Pierre Poilievre, this has been a popular topic today, running against 209 protest candidates in his by-election in Alberta. The longest ballot initiative signed up 209 people to run in that riding, in that by-election. Should that be allowed? Should something like that be against the rules? Do the rules need to be changed? Share your thoughts on these topics. Sarah in Calgary. Gosh, Sarah, I know it's been a bit of a wait for you today, but I thank you for hanging in there.
No problem.
Today.
Thanks for taking my call, Rob.
Just
wanted to talk about the feral summer with kids.
Yes.
And just wanted to 2 points on that. I think it's really important for children with respect to developing resilience as adults. I think all this structuring and parents making decisions for them and their days are all planned out. They really don't get to practice being out, in the real world, or even as teenagers when, they're starting a new job or they're interacting with people outside of their bubble. 2 points mainly is boredom, I think, is very critical to that development. I think if you experience boredom as a child, it's very healthy. But if parents are always rescuing them from boredom, they'll never be comfortable being idle as adults, in my opinion. And I think maybe parents do feel guilty about letting their kids get bored at home while their friends are in camp. Or maybe it's a function of, they're just working parents, so they need to go to work, so they need a babysitter, they need camp. But that first point on boredom. But the second, too, I think it's important for kids to have control over their decisions. I mean, during the school year, they have teachers telling them what to do, tutors. But if decisions are always being made for them or the day is always structured for them, you end up with, potentially a paralyzed teenager when they grow up and they can't handle disappointment, or, they're not able to make quick decisions on their own because they haven't been able to practice independence at a young age. And so I really believe that, feral playing, totally unstructured, outdoor play in the neighborhood with other kids, come home at dark. I mean, we have iPhones, we have watches, we have ways that I think this is much safer now than it was for us in the 80s or 90s.
Put a tag on them.
They'll find a way to get a hold of you, if they need to.
Right. Yeah, so many great points that you make, Sarah. Thank you so much for calling. I really wanted to explore that topic today. It really didn't take off. I thought it would be a great summertime topic. hearing from parents, especially who have raised younger children, to get a better idea how things are working these days. I was kind of a free-range child, which isn't to say I didn't have strict parents, because I certainly had strict parents. But it was a different time. And it was small-town Canada, late 1970s, early 80s, town of about 8,000 or 9,000 people. And during the summer, I mean, it was quite clear. We just were not allowed to laze about the house, watch TV, whatever. My parents were quite insistent. Get out of the house. We had structured activities. We played sports, we played tennis, we played Little League Baseball, played golf. And we were sent off to various summer camps, usually run by the church back then, as a matter of fact, Presbyterian church camp. One year I was sent to music camp. Music camp, band camp. Like, just stamp nerd on your forehead, Mom. But when we were home, we were pretty much free-range children. And, we left the house in the morning, and maybe we came home for lunch. Maybe we didn't. And most of the time we were out and about in the neighborhood until sunset. And then you had to come home once it was dark. Sometimes we were allowed to play after it was dark outside, in the backyard or on the street in front of our house. But people say that's the kind of parenting that needs to make a comeback. Let your children go on their bike rides and go hiking and, play pickup sports, do the feral child summer. Get back to that. When children were more free, less structured than they are now. If you want to weigh in on that, lots of time to take your call and fit you in. Jan up next in Calgary. Hello, Jan. Hi, Jan.
How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Okay, thanks.
That's
okay.
good.
I want to know what happens when your child doesn't come home.
Well, I suppose there's always the risk of that, right? There's always the risk of that. Yeah.
And who pays for the damages these children do?
Well, I suppose there's a risk of that as well.
Okay, but who pays for it?
Well, I would imagine they'll go after the parents if something goes wrong. Right?
No, they don't. They tell you it's your fault. Your house was there. It's your fault.
Okay, I don't know. That's not really the point, I suppose, but of the conversation. There's this feeling now that life is becoming, for children, too structured, or they're on their screens too much, and they're calling this, let your children roam within limits. See them off in the morning. Don't worry too much about what they're doing or where they're going. Okay, let them roam within reason.
Is that structure on the computer? Is it the parent's choice or the kid's choice?
Well, again, I suppose that's the parent's choice. It would be the parent's choice to allow their children to have so much screen time.
So even if they told their kid they couldn't go on the computer and the kid's on the computer, whose choice is it? The kids or the parents?
Well, it would still be the parents, okay? Unless the parents are just going to let the kids run the show.
Yeah, but I get my doorbell pressed at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they tell me, the police tell me they can't do anything about it because it's just kids. If these parents are letting their kids out at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's something wrong.
Well, nobody's suggesting 2 o'clock in the morning, Jan. And I've taken your call before. I've taken your calls before, and I've been very patient with you before. But you're kind of missing the point of this particular discussion. With all due respect, it's not really about teenagers ringing your doorbell at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not really what we're talking about here. 1-833-668-2577. News Radio.
Press. Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yep, it sure is. Let's get right back to the phones here. Pauline is up next on Talkback. Hello, Pauline.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Pauline. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, good to hear from you.
Okay?
I hear you just fine, Pauline. What's your opinion on the topics today?
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so this freedom of act here, religious, I just want to comment on the Christian artist that was invited here in Canada. Now, essentially here, when we look at the limitations for the religious freedom, it's limited, of course, but when it causes harm, violates the right of others, poses threat to public safety or order, look, this was done in a church. Okay, so who is it harming? This was for those who wanted to attend. Now, let's compare that, and let's compare those who were worshiping on the streets of Toronto.
Right.
Yet nothing was done.
People have
then.
made that point. Yeah. Why are the authorities getting all bent out of shape about one pro-MAGA Christian singer? And people have brought this up today. Meanwhile, we have pro-Palestinian protesters basically taking over the streets of any Canadian city on an almost weekly basis. Okay? And we know that some of those protesters, I mean, they're on tape, right? It's all over social media. Some of them, I'm not saying all of them, some of them are anti-Semitic. Okay? It's very clear. They don't like Jews. Okay? They don't like Israel. They don't like Jews. And why is that not being enforced? And yet we have the cops going in and you know, it's on social media, a dozen cops going into a Montreal church to, I don't know, monitor a religious concert.
Well,
Christian
when
concert.
you hear him speak, yeah, perfect, Rob. When you heard the Christian artist speak, he was congratulating and really he was supporting the police for giving him a heads up, right? So this, again, is government. Right? We're looking at the government. Okay. What are they not doing? What are they not doing? The police were on his side. They were trying to protect the guy, you know, from the understanding I got. And then what really, I mean, it was so awesome when you heard, I think it was from Rebel News, and he was knocking the CBC reporter because she says, well, you didn't have a permit, right?
And he said, well, do I need a permit to sing in a church, was his point, right?
Exactly. Like, come on, where does this end? Like, and one more point, and this is just my opinion because this show is based on opinion, right, Rob?
Yeah.
That, you know, this is spiritual attack, okay? It's not MAGA, man. Okay. This is not MAGA. He has belief systems, right? But yet my point is, why is this not taken into their hands when they're blocking streets in Toronto? I don't get it. Come on.
Right.
Like,
fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Look, thank you for your call. I'm not very religious. Don't go to church anymore. Was raised in the church, but don't go to church. Evangelical Christian music, not really my cup of tea. I wouldn't go to a concert featuring an evangelical Christian performer. That's just me. If that happens to be your thing, I'm fine with that. Go have a good time. It's kind of how I look at it. But that's just me, and I don't issue the permits. The people who do issue the permits in many of these Canadian cities have big problems with these concerts and are trying to do their best to make sure they don't go ahead. The one exception seems to be the capital city of Alberta, where the concert in Edmonton will seemingly go ahead with the government's blessing and even with some government help. Linda's in southern Alberta. Hello, Linda. Hi there. Hi, Linda. Linda, are you with me? Linda, I don't think... There we go. Hi, Linda. Are you with me?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Linda. I can hear you just barely. Your phone might be breaking up. Okay, there you are. Go ahead. Yeah.
Am I better now? Okay.
You're better now, yeah.
Thank you. As far as the concert goes, well, I guess that's people's opinions and their right to do, as long as they're not interfering with other people's rights, as far as I'm concerned. As far as Poilievre, the long vote thing, and they're saying they're doing it as a protest.
Yes.
Is that okay? So why not go to Election Canada and put in a complaint? Register a complaint. If you don't like the system, register it that way, as opposed to trying to put so many names on a voting ballot.
Okay.
Because I know it myself. I registered a complaint when it came to letting the voting known before all polls were closed.
Oh, you mean the news media calling the election, saying the Liberals won the election before all the polls
yes.
closed. So, yeah.
So I phoned Elections Canada and I said, I want to put in a complaint. You put in an official complaint. I may be one of one, but I said when it comes to the ballots, if you put in a complaint, maybe you could be one of 10,000, and maybe they would listen. Right. But I mean, doing it this way, I don't think is right.
Okay.
And
Elections Canada again says it's unable to do anything about it. This is they're working within the confines of the law. So that leads me to think, maybe the law needs to change. You think the law should change?
And that's why I put in a complaint. I said, it still needs to be changed. So then they register your complaint. So I think you could do that as far as the other two.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad we could get you on the air. 1-833-668-2577 in the home stretch of the Monday Talkback here on News Radio.
The 660 News Radio Groundworks Traffic Center. I'm Ian Busby. Mostly smooth sailing out there right now. Construction, the only problem that I can see in the northeast. Seeing it a bit slow going right now. Westbound 16th Avenue from 36th Street to Barlow Trail. The right-hand lane being blocked off for some sign work. So expect it to be quite a bit of a slow go getting through that. If you see anything else out there causing a problem, crashes, construction, give us a call. 403-291-0066. Now with the weather forecast, here's meteorologist Kevin Stanfield.
21 degrees your high today with 25 expected Tuesday. Tuesday marking the end of this rain under partly cloudy conditions with 5 to 10 millimeters of rain possible today. By Wednesday, lots of sunshine, southeasterly wind, and a high of 28 degrees. The overnight low falls to 14. On Thursday, the sunshine continues and the high matches at 28 degrees.
Right now, cloudy and misty, winds gusting up to 18 kilometers per hour. We're sitting at 14 degrees in Calgary.
Stop hoping, praying, and wishing that your car will make it from point A to B. Quality Transmission now offers on-the-spot financing, so you can get repairs today and pay later. Everyone's approved. No credit checks required, no down payment. Get approved online at qualitytransmission.com. And they're not just transmission specialists. Service, general auto repair, and tires. Quality Transmission covers it all. Visit them at qualitytransmission.com and 5100 Alberta Road Southeast.
At Save On Foods, you get a little extra advice. So when you ask Sam at the meat counter for a cut of steak to impress your girlfriend's dad, you get one that's AAA and well marbled, which does impress your girlfriend's dad. It even makes him like you. So you start hanging out. And one day you ask, "Wanna be my best man?" Unless that's weird. And he says, yes. Even though you both agree, it's kind of weird. A little extra advice can mean a lot. Save On Foods, giving you extra.
Are you on the path of a heart attack or stroke? Is another one coming? I'm Dr. Dennis Modry. I've performed over 7,000 heart surgeries and transplants, and I want to help you avoid ever needing someone like me. Most heart disease is preventable, but too many people wait until it's too late. The HeartFit Clinic goes beyond cholesterol and stress tests and is the only clinic with accurate screening and proven treatments to prevent and even reverse heart disease. No doctor referral required. Book your free consultation at heartfit.ca.
When you're looking for something new, fresh, and a little different, you head to the Crossroads Market.
Check off your grocery list stall by stall. Our indoor farmers market sells fresh fruits and vegetables, baked goods, cheese from around the world, fresh and frozen meats, fish, seafood, and much more.
The Crossroads Market, serving Calgary since 1987. Local artisans, breweries, distilleries, and international foods. Open Fridays through Sundays from 9 to 5. Visit crossroadsmarket.ca.
Day Report is brought to you by CIR Realty.
Looking to make a move? Calgary is in a balanced real estate market, meaning it's the perfect time for both buyers and sellers to get great value. Whether you're upgrading, downsizing, or diving into your first home, now is a smart time to be in the market. Speak with your CIR Realtor today.
This has been the CIR Realty Real Estate Report. We make real estate easy. Visit CIRRealty.ca.
CFFR AM.
A Rogers radio station.
660 News Radio Calgary. Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, thank you for all of your calls today. and your interest in our topics of the day. But 2 out of 3 were kind of winners. One was kind of a dud. The whole feral summer topic was kind of a dud, but I found it interesting nonetheless. The New York Post, not the Times, the Post, okay, one of my guilty pleasures, has been writing about. I came across this morning. 90s parenting trend is back. New York moms and dads divided. Quote, nostalgic moms and dads are eschewing back-to-back day camps and enrichment programs for their kids. Typical seasonal survival tactics for many families in favor of feral child summers. Feral child summers. It goes on. Some parents want their children to enjoy the laid-back days of rollerblading around the neighborhood and hours-long couch potato sessions before screen time was a matter of constant concern. But others see the freewheeling 90s summer as utterly unrealistic at a time when the streets are more dangerous, digital distractions are less innocent, more addictive, and many families have 2 working parents. Eric Katzman, a 46-year-old public relations professional from Brooklyn, is trying to recapture some of the 90s spirit with his Within Reason We Roamed. We went to the candy store, the froyo place, and we always knew to come home. He said fondly of the summers he enjoyed as a kid. This year is the first he will allow his 12 and 9-year-old children to walk and bike around at will, to roam some within reason. In a recent episode of her popular podcast, Not Gonna Lie, Kylie Kelsey raved about the feral child summer. I love the idea, the mother of 4 enthused. I will currently unleash my children into the backyard. If one of them ends up digging up a rock, have at it, I say. Caitlin Murray, a 43-year-old Westchester mom and popular content creator, is also a fan. She didn't sign her 2 children, ages 9 and 11, up for camps, and instead allows them to come and go as they please, just as she did when she was growing up. It helps that there's limited tech in the home, no video games or tablets, and she doesn't allow YouTube. So that was in one of the papers today. Online, New York Post. And that's kind of the idea, I guess. Let your children, I don't know, feral, such a strong word. What do you think about when you say feral, right? Let your children be feral. Send them off in the morning. Don't worry too much about what they're doing. Even if they don't come home until sunset, it's okay. Let them roam within reason. Maybe we'll pick this up some other day. I do wonder how realistic it is, or even how safe it is. For example, in the Post reporting, it says some parents live in Manhattan. They just can't let their children run around the streets in New York City day and night. Get real. And there are others quoted in some other stories saying it's not safe for a whole bunch of reasons, including, smoke in the air from wildfires, punishing heat from heat waves, humidex readings in the 40s, like the weather we're having here today. And they say sometimes children do need structure, or they could end up wasting the days away staring at the screen on a smartphone. So they do enroll their children in day camps, send them away to summer camps, because it gets them out of the house, gives them something to do. Some structure is good. The flip side, though, in reading some news stories about the feral child summer trend, is that it's just not possible for some people in some parts of the country. We'll pick it up on that topic some other day. Until tomorrow, and another talk back and more of your calls. The latest breaking news is next on News Radio.